143 of Zohar Pshat, and we're on Daf Nun Beis right at the top. First line. Bad lo chatu, before they sinned, have a shaman kol elo. They heard the voices from on high. Because even afterwards they served, but yes, they didn't have to. They did not have to hide from them. And that's what the Nitzutze Zohar says. I'm b'midbar rabban naso pegyav gimel. Achlo chatu mishnah yishomer kol dibur v'oimer al raglav. He would stand on his feet. V'yochel amod bo. He could withstand it. Once he sinned, he couldn't hear it, he couldn't take it in that position anymore. And they would know the Chachma from on high. And they were in a situation where they were radiant with the radiance of on high. Which, of course, made Malachim think that they were divine. The low dachle, they were not afraid. They're not afraid of all sorts of difficult situations. He brings down here the Mitzvah references the Medrash Chazis, which I believe is the Medrash Shir Shirim. Pasuk named Mutasa Shel Yishlomo Shishim Giborim Mesavivla. So, before it's at some point, you have Pachad B'Tzion Chotim. People become afraid because of their chatoim. Came the chotim feel kal the sat loy v'yocholim mekamei. Whatever that's between the kol elyon and kol tachton. So that, I guess, is the answer as to what I was saying before, that you heard a call afterwards. That call was the call tachton, was a lower call, not the higher call. In other words, they're cut from the higher reaches of their own neshamos, their connections, not on high. And they couldn't sustain even the lower connections. Kigavna da, similarly, ad lo chava yisrael, b'shayt kama yisrael, al tur yisrael, before Am Yisrael sinned, after, by the cheta ego, is amnai zuam adai chivyo. The pollution of this snake was removed from them. At this point, there was a negation of the Yetzer, from the world. So, v'dachi luminayu, and they rejected from them. It's interesting issue here on the Tzutze Oros and the Tzutze Zohar. Tzutze Zohar says, I'm not sure where they were, how they see this in Zohar. Perhaps it's more explicit somewhere else, but he says, Mash Mi'ulu Chatu, it sounds like had they not seen Lo Yechol in these Disney Tzutze. If they not seen Lo Yechol in these Davik English or saying, they would not be able to have relations with their wives because they had no desire. It's not clear. The Hamar Kosh Baruch Hu Shulachem Lechem, before they said, Baruch Hu said, go back to your tents. And Parshas Pinchas, on Matofi Dalik, Sas Yishuv Al Zeh, then he brings this in the Aleph Mem. I don't know what that is. He brings that very frequently. V'Yigia Sham Nechdo. I don't know that is who the grandson is either. The Ambazor Noach Imoy Lochot is Adam Loavi Toldos Kigavna Dor the HoRa. Had Adam said he would not have had progeny in the manner of HoRa. Avol Ami Sitra do a cultural condition would have had in the manner of Kodesh Kodashim. Ein Sham Uvezen Nicha V'Ha Nicha Akadvar them, but then so they would have two different ways of having progeny. Vani Bani Omer, I say, says in Tzurtz Oros, Darei of a Zod Afhem Rav Dachi Lekra the Shulachem L'Simchas Onos. It says that this is not going back to the Simcha of Ona to have relations. And it would ask a question, and it concludes that they would have given birth. Not sure what he's resolving. But the Medrash Nelam, Vayera, Kufyu Tesam, or Vasosius Leva Evan. I'm going to remove the heart of stone. The Mizbathel Yetzer, the Yetzer negated. So, Kuflan Samar Vasiosi, you're going to start them, Lay Basar. I'll give you a heart of flesh. Lev Lo Tzi Basar. A heart to produce flesh, to procreate. Lo Davar Acher, not for something else. Valderech Mashkas V'Zor Noach HaNizkar V'Duki Kitzarti. It's from May Ayin, whoever that is. So this idea is that would have been a higher level of procreation had they not sinned than there was now that they sinned. And the Nitzitzi Zohar is much shorter. He said, but basically the same point. Mashkas because it's the same author, Rabbi Margolis. Amishkas Nitzitzi Oros Hacha. The Yamba Basi Zayin Rav Shel Shlosha Loshol Ben Yetzer. The three in which Yetzer did not have any control. And I forget one of them was Eliezer, one was Yishai, and I forget what the third one was. It says here Ayo. I forget what the third one is. Vina Inkos Elidu. They gave birth. And the Yetzer did not control them. Any Yetzer bottom of the Olam says Yetzer is nem negated. Told those kuflim sides of it off, b'medish hanelam shloya menuva kir kameisa, and the Yetzer will not be discussing as it was beginning. So Pshat speaks about this in many places. Pshat says that first of all, there's Rosh Zohar elsewhere, which I don't know why he doesn't bring down here, is that Zohar is going to be mislabbing. It's going to be bleached, but it's still going to exist. And the Pshat also explains that even those who do not have the Yetzer, like Isha and Eliezer, even the most pious person has a sense of pleasure for himself when he has intimacy with his wife. So that is the sense of pleasure is the vestige of the Yetzer. So there's presumably that a person no Yetzer, so a person would be completely devoted to doing it in order to bring about children, in order to provide hanah for the other person involved, not for his own personal hanah. So, but there's two aspects here. In other words, the idea is even in this world, had there been no chait, there still would have been idea of pleasure, because that is intrinsic to the bodily essence of a human being. That pleasure is something which you cannot eradicate, and something which doesn't go away. And that's a shemetz, not actual Yetzer HoRa in the sense of taiva, but something which differentiates between basar adam, between humans and between angels. That there's this concept of pleasure in the bodily sense. That's one aspect. And second thing is that we need the Yetzer HoRa. The Yetzer HoRa is, as Rabbi Sosan says, is the emotional drive, and it's necessary. As Zohar says elsewhere, so called so time, not for Yetzer HoRa, there wouldn't be any pleasure in learning Torah either. So there's a necessity for this idea of the Yetzer HoRa. The Yetzer HoRa in the sense of an emotional drive, and that always will exist. That always will exist, even lasi level. And when it says the Yetzer HoRa is shechted, and when it's sukkah, it means it's going to be uplifted. Like the Zohar says, it's labin, it's going to be bleached. So this idea also is perhaps also connected that it's not for the chait of Adam Rishon, not for the chait of the chait of Egel. So then, of course, it'd still be a drive. The drive would be necessary. Otherwise, there'd be no reproduction. But the drive would be something which also would primarily be something which was used for good and not for purposes which were kinah type of covenant tzim olam. Okay, I think that's a lot to put into the few minutes that you had today, so we'll stop here for today.